like operational data sources, and then it goes to the ETL, and then it goes to the data warehousing, and that comes in the picture of any reporting tool like MicroStrategy or Cognos or whatever it may be, right? And so something called an ODS is an operational data sources, like and this is something called ODS 1 and ODS 2 and ODS 3, and all this one minute. So if I take this is one of the ODS, and this is the third ODS, like ODS stands for the operational data source, like wherein we get our data from the transactional database, and so here it comes to the picture of any ETL. So ETL will be coming into the picture here, like Informatica or any other stuff. So ETL will be coming into the picture, and so all these ODS, all these ODS, all the data sources, and the data will be extract and transform and load into the ETL, and which is an Informatica or Info or a data space or whatever it may be. So that depends on the company, so they can use any of the ETL tool, and then comes to the picture of MicroStrategy or any other BI tool. Here BI tool. So for in our case it's an MSTR. So MSTR stands for the MicroStrategy. The shortest form of a MicroStrategy is called MSTR. So this is the traditional way we are following now, and so all the ODS operational data sources.
So
like
sorry.
something, yeah.
Desktop is not visible.
My desktop is not visible.
No.
Purna, can you?
Yes,
can you
Sridhar.
make me presenter?
Yeah, already make it.
No, but
Make it organizer also, just again check it.
architecture of any of the DWBI is so the data will be coming from the ODS. So I make it from ODS 1 and ODS 2, ODS 3. That's ODS is an operational database data source. Operational data source, so something like So if you go to any of the supermarket, right? So the daily the transactions will be stored into the operational the database, which is called ODS. In our terminology, we'll call it as an ODS, that's an operational data.
Hello,
Like
Sridhar. Hello, Sridhar.
Yeah. Yes. So in a traditional in the DWBI terminology, we'll call it as an ODS. So all the daily transactions will be loaded into the database, and so later on, so using the ETL. So in our MicroStrategy, we can use any of the ETL tool, like in Informatica, Data Space, or Ab Initio, or any of the ETL tools, and which gets these data, the ODS data, into the warehouse. So in the middle, right? So we will have one of the called warehouse, which is an Arkel, Teradata, etc. Okay. So once the data is extracted and transformed and loaded in, extracted from all these ODSs, and then it will be transformed and getting loaded to this warehouse, which is in general warehouse we use any of the Oracle or Teradata, and in some of the cases the client may use the MS SQL MS Server, MS Microsoft SQL Server as well. But in most of the clients, they'll use the Oracle or the Teradata. It's up to the client requirement. So where what warehouse they require, like an Oracle or the Teradata. And then it comes to the MicroStrategy. Once the warehouse is ready, everything is ready, right? Then we will use our BI tool, MicroStrategy or Cognos or Clicky or Tableau. So whatever it is, hitting up the warehouse, and then returning the data and into the format of a report or the dashboard or the document or the scorecard, or it is shooting out to the any of the network daily if they want into the iPad or iPhone, wherever the report has to be delivered. And so all this has to be taken care by the different teams. Okay, so up to till now, the data warehousing, loading into the warehousing is not our part as an BI developer. Okay, as an BI developer, so we don't look into all this. Okay, so as per the only the architecture part, we need to concentrate on the architecture part and how the data is getting loaded to the warehouse. So that is the knowledge is enough for us. Once the data is loaded to the warehouse, then only we will come into the picture. As an BI developer, we will come into the picture of after the data is getting loaded into the warehouse. So our concentration, fully concentration on the MSTR, like MicroStrategy, the BI tool. Right, till now, any doubts or anything here?
Yeah. Good.
Hello?
Yeah, nothing. You can carry on.
Nothing, right? So this is the traditional architecture of any of the BI, DWBI. So all this called, so the entire cycle, the life cycle is called as architecture of this. And so MSTR, the MicroStrategy, is now into the picture now. Okay. So MSTR, the current version is now running at the 9.4, MSTR 9.4. Now, so when coming to the MicroStrategy, right? So once this data warehousing, the data is loaded, so no one is allowed to change the data here. So the data in the data warehouse is an volatile and the time variant. So this is an historical data, and whereas an ODS is having a day-to-day transaction on the OLTP, and whereas an DWH is the data warehousing is an overlap. Right now. 1 minute. Now, MicroStrategy, right? So, MicroStrategy as a BI tool now it's a leading BI tool in the market. Very, very powerful, and so it's a user-based license. And so that is the reason even the cost of a license is pretty much very high. Very costly. Sorry?
Yes, Sridhar, I have a doubt.
Yeah, please.
May I know difference between the 9.3 and 9.4?
Sorry?
The differences between the 9.3 and 4, what are the main features they added in 9.4?
Yeah, it's a visual insight, and there are many other features. Is it Gopal or? Hello?
No, this is Chandra.
Yeah, okay. So it's a visual insight, and there are some other administration part as well. Also, it's getting changed, and there are many other features. Once we started our sessions, right, we will be discussing those.
Okay, Sridhar.
Okay, and so I'm coming from the architecture level, so the DWB architecture, and then as an MSTR architecture will coming to now. So MSTR architecture is we have a two-tier and three-tier and fourth tier or the nth tier. So we can call it as some people will call it as a fourth tier, fifth tier, sixth tier, something like that. But I can mention that the fourth or the nth tier. Okay, right. Here, so one comes to the truth here. Our MSTR, and in MSTR, right? So here there's a box called warehouse. It's a data warehouse, and then we have a metadata. I think everyone has an idea about what is in a metadata, right? Or you want me to explain what is in a metadata here? Hello?
Data about data.
Yeah, it's a data about data, right? So I don't need to explain it again, right? So in the two-tier, right? So MicroStrategy itself will connect to the warehouse and the metadata, right? So in the two-tier, the MicroStrategy, when you are working on the MicroStrategy itself will talk to the warehouse, and it will fetch the required data of any user requirement, and it is also will connect to the metadata, and it will retrieve the object information. Yes, data about data. Yes, what is this metadata? Metadata is the standard definition as data about data. What is data, and again what is an about data, right? So here in MSTR, everything is an object here. Everything is an object. Like whatever you create in a Sridhar as a username. So MicroStrategy treats as a Sridhar is an object. So this object has some object ID, version ID, something like that. So all this information where it has to be stored, right? That has to be stored in the metadata again. So that is called object. Is an Sridhar is an object. Sridhar will have an object ID and version ID in terms of the MicroStrategy. So this information, right? This information you store it in the metadata. That is called the data about data. Okay. So when user logs into the next time, right? When I give my name Sridhar and the password, right? And then it has to be recognized, and it has to be searched into the metadata whether the Sridhar is existing. Yes, if it is exists, then what is the password, and what the password is entered is correct or not. If it is correct, then it allows me to log into the MicroStrategy, right? So that is called the metadata information. That is data about data. What data? Data about the MicroStrategy data, not our regular warehouse wherein now we daily interact with the banking transactions. That data will come into the warehouse. That data will come into the picture of a warehouse. But whereas metadata is the MicroStrategy object information. So in the two sides, there is no layer in between the MicroStrategy on the warehouse or the metadata. So that is called the two-tier. What are the disadvantages and the advantages of a two-tier is, in the two-tier, so only one person can allow to work on it, right? But in the real-time scenarios, if you work on a client, so if only one MicroStrategy developer, so that so the requirement will not be sufficient, right? So n number of reports for any company. If you take any other company like an Amex or Bank of America or any other company, if you go to the Avon or the Pepsi, or if you go to the consumer goods, right, retail marketing, and the Pepsi, Coke and all, so only one report or one developer will not be sufficient for their requirement. But MicroStrategy has come up with the two-tier, right? So that is a disadvantage. Then what is an advantage? Once an architecture is there, then what is an advantage here, right? So the advantage is that the advantage is that, right, when it comes to there is a topic called project duplication, right? The project duplication. So in that time we need to change our project to the two-tier. Then only we can duplicate the project. So where it comes with the project duplication, the administrator will duplicate the project. So if it is a fresh project, this project is not presented in the, we have all the three environments, right? In any of the client environments, we have the development and the testing and the production, right? So if any brand new project which is launched into the development only and it has to be moved to the testing and the production, in that case, we don't have a project in the QA and the administrator will not supposed to create the project in the QA. In that scenario, so the administrator will duplicate the project from the development environment to the testing environment and the testing to the production. Very first time, not always. So in that scenario, the two-tier is required here. So that is an advantage, and these are the disadvantages of any two-tier. Is it clear, or am I going too fast, or is it audible? Or can I continue? Is it okay for you?
Good point. So if we are talking entire architecture, application layer, device layer, and web-based layer, so which are the two layers we are talking about, and what will be a concurrent user base? Because I think it's only a single user base.
No, first of all, your question is not clear and your voice is not clear. So as per my understanding of your question, what you are asking about is in a web interface you are asking, and is it in a single user or multi-user? Yes, of course, it's in two-tier, right? It's in a single user only, but we don't use in the two-tier in the real-time environment. As I mentioned you, only the administrator will use only one time. So if it is a fresh project which does not exist in the QA and in the production, then that case only the administrator will use the two-tier. But when we come across, we have all the three other environments, right? All the architectures like to 3-tier and 4-tier, we will come across whatever you are talking about, web and all. Is it okay. Answer your question?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Now we can go for an 3-tier now. So all other components will come into the picture now. So here is an MSTR, and I come to the called an iServer, so which is in a heart for the MicroStrategy, and this guy is in a warehouse. I can put this in a warehouse and the metadata here, right? So I can mark this is in a warehouse and this is in a our metadata, right? And I can go there. So in the 3-tier architecture, right? So MicroStrategy would not directly talk to the warehouse and the metadata. It will not be talked to directly to the warehouse or the metadata or any other component in the MicroStrategy. So only the MicroStrategy, that means in a desktop, here I can say it's in desktop, okay. So we'll talk to the iServer, and then iServer in turn talk with the warehouse, and then metadata only. So this is a two-way communication. I just opted one arrow, but you can make it in double arrow, okay. This is the 3-tier architecture. In the 3-tier architecture, right, iServer will come into the picture, so that n number of users can be work on to the MicroStrategy, can be log in single time, in any time, right? So, at a time, multiple users can be logged into the MicroStrategy desktop and they can work on with their components and all. They can work on and they can request to the iServer to get generated their reports and execute their reports, blah blah blah. In the iServer, right, so we have many other engines like SQL engine, query engine, analytical engine, and blah blah blah. There are many other engines as well, so we'll be discussing one by one later on once we started our session, right? So in the 3-tier architecture, so there is an component called an iServer, which is in the heart of a MicroStrategy, which in turn talks to the MicroStrategy desktop, and then warehouse, and then the metadata. Is it clear? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Chandra's voice is low.
Hello. Yeah, I'm here.
So any doubts you have for the three types?
No, we can go. No problem.
Okay, I can go down. Yeah. Right, in the fourth year or the nth year, right, why I called it an nth year, so I will add few other components here itself, and so that no, we can complete in one tier only. Otherwise, we can make it the if I add the distribution services, we can call it another type. If I add an LDAP server here, and I can call it as a sixth tier, something like that. But I can call it as an nth tier here. So as we know that the Microstrategy desktop is here, and then iServer internally talks to the warehouse and the metadata. Now I have another component called a web server, which is the fourth component of a MicroStrategy. So in the real-time environment, if you take any other any client, this is the actual picture of a MicroStrategy. This is an actual picture of a MicroStrategy, actual architecture of a MicroStrategy, we can call it as. And so in any typical organization, so we do have a MicroStrategy desktop, iServer, warehouse, and the metadata, and then web server. So MicroStrategy web server, because web is an across the globe, right? So anyone can use it. Like our Gmail, so if we are in Hyderabad or US, wherever, right? So we can log into our Gmail, something like that. No web server. If the company will give us something, MicroStrategy, that if you take the PepsiCo they will call it on some bitool.com, and they will give an username and password, and any of the managers, right, they can log in and they can check their reports and what is happening today, what is the sales, what are the purchases and all, and what is in dashboard. All this they can be logging into the. But so in web server, right, we don't require any other, right? We just require in a browser, whether it's a Chrome or whatever it may be, IE or something else. But when it comes to the Microstrategy desktop, you need to specifically install the Microstrategy desktop. Like all the components required, that server, this is the version, iServer, blah 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 blah. But when it comes to the web server, we don't have any of the restrictions. We don't have any other restrictions, and we just simply log into the type that URL and just log in and check your reports and all. That's it, right? So in the fourth year, so we added the web server, which is called a Microstrategy web server. Here, how we connected the regular users will be connected, right? So using the browsers. So suppose user one is like uses the Chrome, and if at all, I can mark this here so that now. Like this guy is an user 2, is using an IE. Okay, I can say user 3 Firefox. Yes. No browser, there is no dependency on the browser. Now we can go for right. So user can be logged into here and they can be searching at web server, right? So how the request is processed? If I log into the Microstrategy desktop, right, it will be just taking the request here and then it will pass on to the iServer and then it will check the first check into the metadata whether that object really exists and the definition, what is the definition of that object, and it will generate the SQL for that particular request, and then it generates the, and it will pass it to the query engine. Query engine will send that query to the warehouse, and then it will in turn return to the wherever the request comes in. So as the request comes from the Microstrategy desktop, then it will pass on to the Microstrategy desktop. And the same way, this is the same. So user one places a request, it will go to the web server and then iServer and then the metadata and then the warehouse. And in turn, the data warehouse is returning the data and it will go to the web server and corresponding user. Right? Hello?
I think screen is gone.
Oh, screen is gone. Browsers as well. Okay. And so I can add one more here which is called as an LDAP. Right, I can move this to the fourth here. I can call it. I can add a few more cells here. Now so I can add an LDAP here. LDAP is lightweight directory access protocol, which is like users our logins in real time, right? We do have our employee ID. Some users will be logged into with their employee ID or with their username, right? So we in generally, right? So in real time environment, they don't give us something called a Sridhar V or something like that. So they will give some the anti-authentication like ADAP like Windows directory, Active Directory, right? A lightweight directory access protocol, something like that employee ID or something will be given here. So in generally we log into our something mail dot our company name.com, right? Wherein we give our mail ID and then login, right? And so every user that means active users will be placed into the Active Directory in the Windows environment, and with that user only they will log few of the users, right? So for that reason I am adding into the LDAP. So this is also in a real-time scenario wherein we log into that. Right. So this LDAP in turn log into the first LDAP users. So LDAP is something Sridhar V. So they can log into the LDAP V. That means Sridhar V exists into the LDAP. Now my password is not my MicroStrategy password. What the MicroStrategy will do when an LDAP authentication is used, then MicroStrategy does not have the password with the MicroStrategy. It has to be requested against to the Active Directory of the Windows. It will send to the Windows and whether this password is valid or not for this Sridhar V, right? So that is called an LDAP authentication. So I placed it here itself in the fourth pair or end here. Okay, is it clear till now? Okay, great. Now, so I can add some other component called distribution services here. So what a distribution service of a MicroStrategy will do is, and so every day, and so sometime my report has to be delivered to my CEO on his iPhone at 9 a.m. the PST timing. So that functionality will done by a component called distribution services. So every component the MicroStrategy will sell to the customers, so that every component is in a license based. And so if I add distribution services here, right, so then I can call it as one more one more TX. So if you keep on adding a something, right, and then I can call it as one of the TX. So that is the reason I called it an nth TX. Okay. So here is in a Microstrategy desktop, and this is in a Microstrategy web, MSTR. I can call it as in a web, Microstrategy web. Okay, and as in a web stands for, right, this is an HTTP connection, HTTP or HTTPS connection, and this is an a TCP IP. This is a Windows protocol, right? So Microstrategy desktop is a Windows component, and this is an a TCP IP is a protocol that uses here. And it directly talks to the iServer. Any doubts till now on the architecture part?
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Right?
And then,
Hi, Sridhar.
yeah.
Yeah, what will the analytical engine?
Yeah, analytical engine, right? So any performance, like any of the calculations will be done by an analytical engine, such as like any of the custom groups or the consolidations or any of the cross tabbing and all. Once we go into the SQL part of the Microstrategy report, right, we'll discuss more into the analytical engine part.
Oh, okay.
This is the calculations. If you go to open the SQL part of a Microstrategy report, it will show the analytical engine calculations. Like in a custom group and all, if you use one of the objects called a custom group. So there's custom groups and the consolidations. Consolidations will be done by the analytical engine, and that's the cross tabbing, and all this will be discussing once we see once we generate the report, and then we can see that the SQL part of that report, right? Then we will be going through the detailed section of analytical engine.
Okay, may I know how much important SQL to learn MicroStrategy?
SQL, if you can understand, that's enough. If you don't require to write any complex queries here, everything MicroStrategy will do will write the query. Just you need to understand it. Even if you understand or not, is also not required. Why? Because if you want to execute that query into the database, the data warehouse, like an extent, and a simple knowledge, if you know only the select statement, that's enough. Nothing much more. You don't require to any other like where or the subqueries. You don't require. Once we create an object, right, the Microstrategy interns will write the query. You don't write the query. You just create the object. There are few of the objects in the, so we are now we are getting into the object part now.
Okay.
Just drag and drop. You don't require any of the SQL knowledge. If you have a select statement, if you know how the select statement works, select column 1, column 1, column 2 from the so and so table, and if you know a simple join like an inner join is a common rows from this table to that table and club together and just show it, right? So if you have that part of the knowledge, that's more than enough. You don't require to write in a having group by blah 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 blah. No, it's a tool. It's a tool. Just tool in the sense you just drag and drop it. That's it. The background part of it, right? It will do. So that is the beauty of the Microstrategy. You don't require to know any other stuff. Detailed subqueries, inner queries, and it will be written to the main query and all. You don't require. It's not in a SQL PL SQL.
Okay.
You have knowledge of the select, right?
Yeah, select.
Yeah, that's enough. That's more than enough. You don't require anything.
Oh, okay.
You don't require any of the functions. You know the sum and count. These two functions, you know how these two functions will work, right? Everything Microstrategy will write for you. So
yeah,
you
but
just
I think it will generate more than like one page SQL, right? It will create some temp tables. Okay, I think when we got any errors, so we need to understand
that inner joins, that inner queries and all, it will write that. But logic behind is how you create the object, that if you know the object, right? That's all business requirement. That's the business knowledge. If you have the business knowledge of it, then you can create it.
Okay.
Okay. And so just simple select statement. So why it is written in some temp tables, some passes, there are many of the passes, right? So if you see, I think you already seen that Microstrategy SQL, right? Report SQL. If you see, there are lots many inside that. The pass
Yeah.
0 to it will start at the database instance. What is the database instance? And how many rows, how many columns, and all. How much is the time? It starts with the pass 0 and it ends at the pass nth pass. So
Yes. Yes.
in between something goes wrong, and it will use it to some. The temp table names also is difficult and tricky and lengthy. A minimum of 10 characters of the temp table.
Yes. Yes.
To understand that temp tables and all, it will take some more time.
Oh,
So as
then
of
how
now,
can?
yeah,
Sorry.
as of now, just keep aside that part. That part we don't need. That part, don't be panic and don't be uh, something right. So it starts a pass 0 and it is written in more passes, 10 pass and all. So when we are keep on adding those objects and when we are keep on looking at the sequel, we will be getting habituated. So you don't require to write any inner queries or anything.
Okay. Okay, Sridhar.
Just understand the simple queries, just a self statement. What is
Okay.
inside the temp tables and all? So when we are adding or when we are developing in the first report, right, then we will see the SQL, how the SQL is written. And if we add the few more objects, then we will go on see that what is in SQL is happening. And if you understand so one or two SQLs, then if MicroStrategy writes, 100 pass also we don't care about
Okay. Okay.
it. Okay,
Okay.
so sounds good. And then coming to the MicroStrategy, right? MSCR, what are the roles, available roles in the industry, right? So one is an MSCR developer, there's an hard case, so experience is 0 to 6 years, so that all required by the company. Also, and then MSCR architect, which is more than 6 years only, then they will call it as an architect. Okay, and then the most powerful role is an admin. So when it comes to the developer and the architect, there are many no more openings in an organization for any project. But when it comes to the admin, so admin scope is very less and they work for the shift as well. And so there are not very much openings for this admin. And their job is in a protocol type, like, they have the document, read the document, follow the steps, that's it. But when it comes to the developer aspect, we have more and more, and we'll be concentrating on the developer and an architect. And come to the admin, so we have few other topics we'll be discussing into that admin. Okay, so installing of the MicroStrategy, we'll be looking into that, and so objects like distribution services. I told you how the report is deployed and it will be executing to the iPhone and all. Right, that part we cannot cover it. So in the theoretical part we can cover in the administration. But whereas not that distribution services system is license based and we don't have license to how it. But theoretical how it goes. And if you are looking for an MSCR admin, then we can go ahead with the other courses. But in this course, we will be more concentrating on the developer and the architect role, and then admin also will be in the theoretical part. Clear?
Okay. May I know what are the developer roles in organization? Like I want to know like what he has to do in organization as a developer.
Yeah. Yeah, developer, right? He has to take the requirement, and we so in a typical, right, in an onshore offshore model we do follow in any organization, right? One guy sits into the onshore in the client place, and the rest of the team sits into the offshore. And offshore we have a technical lead over here, and then onshore only one guy. Onshore guy will directly reaches to the client or in between one of the business analysts called BA. So that guy, that actual BA guy will get the actual requirements from the client, and he will pass on to our on-site coordinator. He is an also developer, but he don't develop anything because he sits into the on-site and he didn't get a chance to work on it. And then he will pass on to information to the offshore.
Okay. And okay.
Yeah, and then actual offshore will be working on it, and we have a technical lead, and technical lead is a senior resource in the project or in the experience wise on that, and then a developer, right? So how in a typical development will come into that? So if you take any retail market, right? So in the retail manager, so he wants to know the skills. What is today's sales, what is the next today's sales, what is the last month profit, and all. He will talk to the business analyst and saying that, hey, I want what are the sales for this particular region and for this particular date and time. Okay, from March 1st to 31st of March, what is my revenue generated for particularly in one region. If you take Asia Pacific, what is my sales? That and all, so he will pass on to that, and as a developer you need to develop this. What actually required for to develop this dashboard or the document or the report, right? So this is an actual developer, and once he develops all the components required, then he will do the unit testing, and then he will request some administrator to move this code to the QA environment, that is the testing environment, and once it is passed our unit testing, then it will move on to the QA. Once that business analyst, if it is in some retail or something, then business analyst will come into the picture and they will test it. Once the BA sign off, then we will move on to the production environment. Okay, and this is
Is there any testers are there, MicroStrategy testers for that?
Yeah, that depends. That depends on the client. But one thing is the business analyst has to give a sign off before they enter the production environment. If it is a banking environment and if it is a bank client, they have a testing team, a separate testing team. If it is in retail or the consumer goods or any other domain, right? So that is their wish. No boss, I don't have any budget to afford a testing team here, because a test project manager has to come, a test end-to-end project manager has to come, and so all these resources have to be built against the project. That again billing issue. But when financial and insurance, if you go to the BFSI, like in banking and financial and insurance, they must and should have a testing team. That all depends on the client. So we cannot say this guy has this team has a testing team or not. Okay.
Okay.
And as a given a simple, go ahead.
Unit testing includes what?
Yeah, unit testing, right? The developer will do the unit testing. Like, what is an actual requirement? What is this report does?
Okay.
Right. Okay. So once it is developed into the development environment, and if the behavior of the report is the same as in QA environment. Okay. All the components are so. You got a requirement saying that no, it's not a requirement, it's an enhancement for the existing report. Okay, it's not the new report. So what you did is you just did the changes of whatever that report, that requirement, that enhancement required. You just did that changes. You don't bother about whether these changes of this report and these objects will affect other reports or not. You don't bother about, right? Okay, that impact analysis has to be done before developing if you're touching any of the existing objects. Okay. If you are touching of any of the objects, then you need to do the impact analysis, and that and all comes for the unit testing and all that will be identified in the unit testing part, and then it will move on to that. Okay. Right, I just given a simple example of a report which is what is my last month sales, right? What I required is the 1st March to the 31st March for 2015, right? It is just simple requirement, but when it comes to the developer, right, there are a lot many objects has to be developed, right? So today he asked for the 1st March to 31st March, and tomorrow he will ask 1st April to 30th April, right? So, hello. So, as per understanding of the requirements, so we need to go ahead and develop all the objects, how to identify all this. So, we have a MicroStrategy object. Okay. We have some MicroStrategy objects. What are that? The configuration object, schema object, public object. Okay. The configuration object is admin will be working on it, and the schema object is an architect, and this guy is public object. Yeah.
Screen is not visible.
Yeah, 1 minute. Let me share it again. Yeah. So here MicroStrategy object, we have a configuration object. Okay. So on the configuration object, who will be working on it? Admin will be working on the configuration object, and the schema object is who will be working on? Architect will be working on. Public object, developer will be working on. And here no, and sometimes a developer will also work for the schema object. Okay.
Okay.
So what are the CO? Like now project source and the project and the database instances and the DSNs and all the schedules, all the user creations, all the user maintenance, all this stuff into the CO. So we don't bother about the configuration object. Now schema object is an attribute, path, transformation, right?
Hello.
The table,
Hello.
a hierarchy. Hello.
Yeah, Sridhar.
And the public. Yeah.
We are unable to visible your screen. Sridhar.
Oh. Yeah, okay. Now is it okay, right?
No, Sridhar.
No, Sridhar. Now it's.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So administrator object is an account as the project manager.
So how you can, do you think how much knowledge is expected?
Okay, so you are working for a company, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so now which technology you are working in?
That is not having any technology. Their product is IBM or Finland or any kind of products like that.
So you're doing your project management stuff like now.
Yes.
All your profits, all your schedules and all. What is the project management stuff you are doing, right?
Yeah, correct. I'm PRINCE2 certified on project management.
You are not into any of the technical part, right?
No, not at all.
But you want into the MicroStrategy.
So yeah.
Okay. So I think as per your experience, 13 years of an experience, right? I don't think you will be covered as a developer. Okay. So might be an architect role for you is a preferable. But even though an architect, right? How an architect becomes from the developer role. Okay, if you know all the topics of what is happening in the MicroStrategy, right? Then if your company assigns a MicroStrategy project, then you can really know, right? You can give a suggestions to your team saying that no, this is the solution. If the team faces some problem, right? Then you can go and tell them that this is a solution where you can use this architecture, that architecture, and how an administrator works and how a developer works or not. So you're not in a job seeker, right? So you're already working for the job, and so I can assist for the job as well. There's no issue for that. So, but as your experience is more, right, the 13 years, I don't think so. You will not be, if anyone so will not be in a developer role for that. But if you're really interested and yes, I want to be a developer, then we obviously here to develop you or to train you in that manner. But my way of teaching is I can come from the basics. I can come from the basics and I can teach from my way of teaching. I have a few topics and I'm a trainer, so I have the flow how I can complete the flow, and so in that flow I can go at.
Okay.
So when you are looking for a project manager stuff, then you should know the more in the basics. Not if you know the advanced also it's okay, but the basics is more important, right? When you are talking to your team, right? So if you don't know anything in the microstrategy and you are leading a microstrategy team, right? Then they will give you a different story and what is happening, and that so one of the senior resources will give you and this is what happening, Gopal. Then you believe that okay okay that is happening. But
No, I
if you
understand
know,
I
yeah,
understand
if
your
you
perspective and appreciate that, but I just want to know what are the chances of getting a job? How much possibility is there?
yeah, there are many other job openings nowadays for the Microsoft. It's a hot cake nowadays, and so everyone is gonna getting a job. The only thing is for your case where you fit into the architect role, I guess. So before that, which technology you worked in a Cognos or any other tool or?
See, products which were used were Cognos also, and it's Maya communication. Also, I worked on Hadoop projects.
Hadoop.
Yeah, Hadoop, which is basically, on the front end you have Microsoft or something, basically a US-based BA, they are local BA products. So from conceptual point of view, I can build up a solution. But if you say programming setback, I won't be.
Okay. So I guess you will be fitting into my architect role as per my understanding.
Components wise, I can build up, let's say there will be a data warehouse, it will be the SQL queries also I can build up. I can segregate data marks, and then on the BI front, which are basically dashboards which we have to come up, which are safe when people look for, I can build up. But on the background, the documents, basically the technology, I don't have hands on. So that's a challenge which I'm facing.
Okay. Okay, I believe you will be fitting into the architect role. So you already have the knowledge of microstrategy?
No, sir.
Sorry?
No.
Okay. I believe you will be fitting into the microstrategy architect. And we have the job openings, and even I get the job openings from other companies as my friends and other stuff. I guess so we will pass on it and we will give a job assistance as well.
How much is the duration of the course?
Yeah, duration of the course is 30 days, which is in 30 hours.
Okay.
Thank you. Hello.
Yes, Chandra.
Yeah, Caesar, is there any opportunities for freshers?
Yeah, we do have a freshers as well. So your experience, how many years of experience you have?
I am 2011 passed out. I'm looking for a fresher. I want to go as a fresher.
11 pass out, right? So
Yeah.
you have 4 years of experience. Yeah, we do have many more. 4 years, yes, sir. Okay, 3 plus also we have, and 2 plus also we have.
No, actually, I want to go as a fresher.
As a fresher, but you said you are in 2011 pass out, right?
Yeah, even though I want to pay, I want to pay. Is there any opportunities like even if it is a small company? Also, not a problem.
Yeah, we have other companies. There are few other companies. Once our starts right in Hyderabad itself, we have a few other companies called Nalgan and all. There are few other companies they hire that only for the first with the lowest salary also. But once you get an experience of a real time, then you can jump on that.
Yeah, actually, I'm not looking for much salary. Just I want to know subject first. So that's why I'm asking.
Prior to this, have you worked anywhere or not?
No, actually, I have knowledge in Microstrategy. Actually, my brother was working on Microstrategy, my brother friend.
Sorry?
So, yeah, actually, one of my brother friend, he was working on Microstrategy, so I learned from him a little bit.
Oh, okay.
So I want
Okay.
more knowledge about in-depth knowledge. So that's why.
Yeah, okay, nice. No issues, we can given a job assistance as well and we can do it. No issues. Okay. Purna?
Yes, Leader.
Yeah, Purna, so I'm done with the demo and so I'm just winding up the call. So please let me know when the classes start so that now we can be starting our sessions. Okay?
Okay, Leader. Thanks.
Okay, just I'm winding up. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you Gopal and Chandra. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Leader. Thank you.
Yeah.